Well, I want to welcome everybody and kind of let you know how we're going to move today's ceremony that's really so meaningful for the Chamber and all business owners out there. It was a vision that John Shaffrey had that Dana continued, and of course the current chairman, Chris, said, let's do this. Let's honor veterans. Let's let our business owners honor veterans, the community honor veterans, because if it wasn't for the veterans, if it wasn't those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, we wouldn't have the ability to have great businesses and the ability to provide a great life for our families. So thank you to those past chairmen and of course, and chairwoman, and of course to Terry for helping us fulfill this vision. So I'd like to start by introducing 6 different guests that are going to present awards to our recipients. I want to introduce Bob Keller, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Santa Clarita. Bob. Carl Goldman. Carl Goldman's going to be representing today Congressman Buck McKeon's office. Carl. Lynn Howder. Lynn Howder from Senator Tony Strickland's office. Lynn. Jackie Bick from Senator Sharon Runner's office. Jackie. Sharon Bronson from Assemblyman Cameron Smythe's office. Sharon. And last but not least, Dave Perry from Supervisor Antonivich's office. Dave. Bob, if you'd like to come up and say a word or two on behalf of the city.
Crazy. Let a guy get loose with a microphone and talk about the city. I could be here for a week. No, on behalf of the city, I will tell you we're honored to be here, and I am particularly thrilled at the energy that Santa Clarita has brought forward having to do with our veterans, our members of the military. And I've got to make mention, a lot of this attention and good work that's being carried out is by a number of people in our community, but one of the people in the forefront is this guy standing right behind me, Fred Arnold. Please give him a big round of applause. I know we all recognize the importance of recognizing our veterans, ladies and gentlemen, those that we have lost, those that have served, those that will be serving more in the future. God bless them all. God bless you for being here. And I can't think of a more worthy cause. Thank you.
I'm wearing my Congressman McKeon's hat. Actually, our congressman who's head of the Armed Services Committee, we just had a chance, we took a group out to Washington, D.C. and spent 3 days out there in May and had a chance to see him in action. It was pretty exciting as he presented the appropriations bill on the House floor. I've known the congressman for many, many years. I feel attached to him in a lot of ways, but he was instrumental in assisting my oldest son in getting into West Point back in 2006. My son's graduated 2010, and he's going to be deployed in the spring. So our heart goes out to all the vets here in the room today, and then more importantly also all the young kids who are over there right now and soon to be heading over there. Jim Lentini, I didn't know he was Buck's speechwriter, but he handed this to me and I took a look at it and it's very appropriate, and I just want to take 10 seconds and read it. A veteran, whether active duty, retired, National Guard, or Reserve, is someone who at one point in his or her life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount of up to and including my life. Author is unknown, but I bet he was a veteran. Thank you on behalf of Congressman McKeon.
Hi, everyone. I'm here on behalf of Senator Tony Strickland in the California State Senate, and I always get emotional when I have the opportunity to recognize veterans or military. I'm the granddaughter of a Navy officer and a CV, and my son's a Marine. And I know probably most of you, if not everyone, has someone in their life that has served and sacrificed for our country. And it's very, very appropriate, and I'm so thankful that that our chamber is taking the time to recognize true patriots, true heroes in our community. And so I'm very glad to be here on behalf of Senator Strickland and the State Senate to congratulate you and thank all of you for being here.
Hi, for those of you who don't recognize me, and we've been sort of winding down because Sharon is not running again. I am Jackie Bick, and I represent Senator Sharon Runner. Sharon and our office has always been so supportive of all of the veterans, all of the people who come back from various parts of the world having served their country. It is such a pleasure to be here today representing Sharon and the Senate of the state of California in honoring all of the people in this room who've served. So thank you. Thank you to all of the people here in Santa Clarita who support you as well.
Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for being here this afternoon to honor our veterans. I had the opportunity to meet two of them sitting at the table back here at table number 13, two Vietnam vets, and was very honored to meet both of you gentlemen. I am here representing Assemblymember Cameron Smythe. And Assemblymember Smythe is honored to pay tribute to all the veterans, our local veterans and veterans all over the world. He comes from a family of military people. His father, Clyde, was in the Army, and he was during the Korean War, and his brother is also in the service and is currently serving over in Korea. So, in the words of President Ronald Reagan, we will always remember, we will always be proud, we will always be prepared, so we will always be free. So on behalf of Assemblymember Cameron Smythe, thank you to all of you who have accomplished that through your service, and thank you to the Chamber, and thank you, Fred Arnold, for all that you do.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of Supervisor Antonovich, a military man himself. You know, this valley is one of the most philanthropically active regions in the state. It's astounding how our community comes to the aid of the disadvantaged, and it makes the supervisor especially proud to see the level of commitment to our veterans and active duty service members. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber for continuing to put on this event, to provide this scholarship for such a worthy cause, to all the sponsors. This is probably the best money you've spent all year. Two people in particular who over the past couple of years have put so much effort into developing programs and bringing attention to helping our veterans out, Fred Arnold, as was mentioned before, and J.D. Kennedy, working on not only on behalf of Congressman McKeon, but as a veteran himself, all he's done for the veterans. Supervisor couldn't be prouder, so thank you very much for having us here today.
I wanted to sum it up the best way I could, and I was doing some research about a veteran and what it means to be a veteran. And I came across something from actually Air Force Public Affairs, honoring our veterans, a rich heritage I wanted to share with you. What does Veterans Day and what does a veteran mean? It comes down to one sentence that may not have meant anything to some of you before September 11th, 2001. Freedom is not free. The events of September 11th have changed our focus. Now we are fighting a global war on terrorism against violent extremists who want to end our way of life. This war is about two incompatible visions of the world: democracy, justice, freedom, and hope on one hand, and intolerance, repression, violence, and fear on the other. Freedom has never been free. The belief resonates strongly in the hearts of our nation's veterans. For those who have put their lives on the line for our country, freedom has a special meaning that we may never know. Ask a veteran who stormed Omaha Beach in World War II, who almost froze on Korea's Chosin Reservoir, who slogged through the steamy Mekong Delta in Vietnam, who chased the Republican Guard all the way back to Baghdad, or who is still fighting al-Qaeda insurgents in Afghanistan and Iraq. These people could tell you the meaning of freedom. Today, the return of our servicemen and women get much fanfare. People shake their hands at the airports, thank them for their valiant service. Unfortunately, there are times in our country's history where veterans didn't return to such a warm welcome. Sadly, Korea and Vietnam War veterans didn't get a hero's welcome at all. America has taken great strides to heal the wounds of these veterans. It took time, but our citizens have recognized the price they have paid, even though the citizens may not have agreed with the U.S. involvement in that particular war. The words "freedom is not free," etched on the marble in the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C., honors Americans who fought in the forgotten war. By recognizing the contributions of these forgotten heroes, we can continue to heal the wounds and ensure we'll never forget them and all the heroes that have passed before them. Veterans and Veterans Day allows everyone, in days like today, allow everyone to appreciate the enormous sacrifices our men and women in uniform continue to make. In towns and cities across our great nation, Americans thank their neighbors who have been called to serve and balance their civilian life with their patriotic guard and reserve duty. These are our teachers, firefighters, shop owners, lawyers, police officers, and even our own family members. Americans everywhere have rediscovered a great pride in our nation's veterans. Because of the veterans of the past, we are free. Because of veterans of the present and future, we will remain free. And at this point, I'd like to ask all veterans in the room, please stand up so we can recognize you. Before we start our first honoree, I just would like to recognize Gary Singer. Gary Singer, your father-in-law, who lived locally, recently passed. Your father-in-law was Colonel Walter H. Coons. He flew 38 missions as a lead bombardier in Europe. His 306th Bomber Group, part of the mighty 8th Air Force, was featured in the movie 12 O'Clock High. And out of 160 flyers in his group, he and 10 others came back alive. He lived from 1918 to 1912. Gary, on behalf of the Santa Clarita Chamber of Commerce, will you please thank your wife and yourself for your father-in-law's service? Thank you. At this time, I'd like to please welcome up Julie Whitman. She's the exhausted ruler of the Elks Lodge to welcome our first honoree. Julie?
Good afternoon. Though I am exhausted, my name is Julie Whitman. I am the exalted ruler of the Santa Clarita Elks Lodge. This afternoon, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Dick Roloffs, affectionately known as Mr. Music at our home lodge. Dick enlisted into the Naval Reserve on September 1st, 1942, when he was 21 years old, despite his mother's urging him to wait until he was drafted. After 2.5 weeks of boot camp, he was sent to Primary Fire Control School for 16 weeks of training in Newport, Rhode Island. After his class of 250 trainees completed their training, Dick was one of 25 to be promoted to a third-class petty officer and would handle the maintenance and operation of the equipment which directs the position and firing of the guns. Upon leaving the Advanced FC School in Washington, D.C., Dick reported to Mobile, Alabama, for the finishing of the USS David W. Taylor. As part of the pre-commissioning crew, Dick assisted with the installation of some of the fire control gear. Dick sailed to the Atlantic Ocean on the USS Taylor for its shakedown cruise and late in 1943, the tailor was assigned to escort duty for a group of merchant vessels headed for the South Pacific. The ships departed from New Orleans on New Year's Eve day of 1944 and transit the Panama Canal with a final destination of Fudy in the Ellis Islands. While in the South Pacific, Dick was promoted to Fire Controlman Second Class. The USS Taylor reported to the 7th Fleet and took part in the Gilbert and Marshall Islands invasion. Dick would later submit his application for the V-12 program, a naval engineering program in which accepted sailors could earn their commission. Dick was accepted into the program, detached from his ship in June of 1944. At the University of California in Berkeley, he would study electrical engineering for the remainder of the war. While in his junior year at Berkeley, the war ended, and Dick opted out of the program. After 3.5 years of service, he was honorably discharged. That didn't stop him, though. Later, Dick would serve 22 months of active duty in Korea in 1951 and 1952, where he was promoted to Fire Controlman First Class. I'm sorry. Thank you for all you've done.
Wow, I'd like to welcome up Joseph Matillo, World War II United States Air Force. Joseph Matillo was born in Cleveland, Ohio on February 20th, 1920. He would plant wheat, corn, and vegetables on his uncle's 100-acre farm in Cleveland, where he would then sell those vegetables on the street. Boy, what a different generation, huh, than we have now. Joseph graduated from John Hayes High School in Cleveland, Ohio, and he was drafted June 21st, 1942, right in the middle of the war. Joseph was a corporal in the Air Force. He went on to Biloxi, Mississippi, and then went to West Virginia. Later, he went to New York, and then to England on the Queen Mary. On the Queen Mary, there were 10,000 troops, and every night they had to sleep outside on the decks, concerned about the fire they would take as they go across the Atlantic. They stopped at the Rock of Gibraltar, where the ship was shot at. It took them 10 days to get to England. They set up an airfield in England 60 miles from London. Joseph had no military experience and had never fired a gun before he entered the military. He stayed in England for 3 months and then later went on to North Africa. He then went on to Sicily and Naples and stayed in the Rome Champion Airfield for 1 year. In August of 1945, he was sent back to Virginia and to the States, where he was discharged honorably from the United States Air Force. Mr. Matillo and his brother built a house in California where they decided to raise a family. However, he met the love of his life, Josephina, in Florida, Palm Beach, Florida, having never met her before, but writing letters to her for over 2 years. They decided to marry and make their residence in California. Joe thought Josephina was the love of his life. She recently passed away in 2011, and they had 3 children, 2 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. Joseph had a construction business with his brother for many years, and he worked in construction during the day, but went to his store, his restaurant at night, to work, because that's the way that generation lived. He built custom homes throughout California. Even though Joseph is now 92, he has never stopped working. He makes silver buckles and earrings, has traveled to Australia and New Zealand to find opals and other rare gems. Joseph also owns and manages a shopping center in Valencia, California. Will you all please help me welcome Joseph Matillo.
Well, I can see what's coming about here. There's got to be somebody in the Chamber of Commerce that's in the framing business. You want to pass out your cards, I'll tell you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have our next recipient. It's my pleasure to ask Glenn Barker, World War II Army Bronze Star recipient, to please come forward. Glenn W. Barker enlisted in the Army Air Corps at the age of 17 and a half at the beginning of World War II and served with the 9th Army Air Corps as an automotive mechanic. And Glenn worked with the Lorraine Crane and C-2 Wrecker. While in France, Glenn was regularly sent on missions to salvage downed aircraft. While on mission, driving a Jeep, Glenn found himself in the middle of a minefield. He spotted a mine in time to take actions necessary to save his crew. For his actions, Glenn Barker was awarded the Bronze Star. He was honorably discharged from the Army Air Corps at the end of his service. Following the war, Glenn met his wife, Iris Lillian, in Beggar Hill, England, and was married at age 21. They returned to the United States and settled in California, where they were married for 62 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Barker.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Kopp, and I'm the immediate past chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's so nice to see everybody here today at our second annual Patriot Lunch. So I really appreciate you all being here today. I'm here to introduce Mr. Harry Gratz. Harry Gratz is a World War II veteran and will be celebrating his 94th birthday next week on July 20th. He was born in 1918 and was raised in New York City, Harlem. He attended Marist High School in New Jersey. Harry was trained at Fort Dix, New Jersey, where he decided to enter the Signal Corps. He served from 1941 to 1945 in Casablanca, among other places. Very nice. One experience Harry recalls was when he and his troop were assigned to protect a monastery while the Germans were bombing. Harry injured both of his legs. Harry was sent to a hospital where he developed malaria as well as an outbreak of yellow jaundice. Thankfully, in the years following, Harry made a full recovery. When Harry returned home, he married and had 2 daughters. Harry and his wife shared a great love and were married for 50 years. They each enjoyed volunteering at the Santa Clara Valley Senior Center for many years, until his wife passed away of Alzheimer's. One of his daughters works in television, while his other is part of a law company. Harry is an advocate for Alzheimer's research advancement, in which he hopes to be part of finding a cure. Harry is also the co-founder to the Veterans Plaza, where they have served 104,000 veterans. Today, Harry enjoys answering his mail, exercising, and playing for his Wii bowling team. He writes many letters and columns addressing his opinions and advice on diverse issues. In addition to spreading awareness of Alzheimer's, Harry is a voice for disabled veterans and a voice and inspiration to those who will listen. Help me in recognizing Mr. Harry Gratz.
Hello again, I'm Tony Tartaglia with the Gas Company. I'd like to invite up Brian Moss, a Korean War veteran. Brian? Before I start, I see this as very ironic. Brian was born and raised in Glendale, California, and I live in Glendale, California, and also I'm on the board of the trustees for the college, so I find it very interesting that I ended up with a gentleman that graduated from Hoover High in Glendale in 1951. So I said Brian was born and raised in Glendale, graduated from Hoover High. He joined the U.S. Navy on November 5th, 1951, and was discharged on November 3rd, 1959, after serving 4 years of active duty and serving an additional 4 years of active reserves as a radio man first-class petty officer. or petty. Brian was hired by the FBI February 1956 as a radio communications officer and worked out of the San Diego field office until he left them in 1964, and was hired by Columbia Ribbon and Carbon of Glen Cove, New York. He was later moved to the Phoenix, Arizona office in 1955, where he resigned in May 1976, and was hired by Computer Graphics Corporation of Wilmington, Massachusetts, for the Los Angeles territory of the Phoenix office. Brian was transferred to the LA office for the newspaper division as a specialist and retired in 1997. Brian has 3 children, David, Glenn, Lori, and 4 grandchildren. His wife, Gail G. Moss, have been married for several years. Brian is now active in the veterans of the USS Iowa and Pacific Battleship Center, who just placed the ex-USS Iowa BB-61 in San Pedro, berth 87, port of Los Angeles. Brian, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Callis, United States Air Force veteran, and it's with great pride and honor that unanimously selected in our group to represent the epitome of a Vietnam veteran is the man to my right, Frank LaRosa. Frank's always lived by the saying of John F. Kennedy, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." From the early stages of the Vietnam War, he knew that he belonged in the service. He was meant to serve his country, especially after 10 young men had been killed in action and several had been returned home, wounded, just horribly, and that was to his hometown. He begged and begged and begged, and his parents refused to let him join the Army or the Marines because of the volume of the news reports showing the gruesome battles and the casualties of war of the soldiers and the Marines. So eventually, at age 16, Frank prevailed, and his parents agreed to sign the waivers necessary, and he joined the Navy at age 16. His first duty station was aboard the USS New Jersey BB-62, the Black Dragon, in Vietnam, the most decorated battleship in U.S. naval history. When the ship was decommissioned, Frank was transferred to the USS Mansfield DD-728, Sumner-class destroyer with 7th Fleet Carrier Group. During a firing mission, Frank was injured with a 5-inch, 60-pound shell dropped on his head. Has nothing to do with his state of mind. He was evacuated to an Army field hospital in Phan Thai, Vietnam, which was rocketed that night. After several temporary duty assignments in Vietnam areas, such as Vinh Long, Mekong Delta, and Da Nang, Frank returned back to his ship, the USS Mansfield. Frank would later be assigned to Naples, Italy, and NATO, Europe. Frank was discharged honorably from the Navy in 1973 and got his wish and enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1974, where he was assigned to Willow Grove, Pennsylvania as a helicopter mechanic and until his discharge in 1977. Frank has been a life member of the Disabled American Veterans for 33 years and is currently the president of the local chapter of the Vietnam Veterans of America, the Lost Patrol Chapter 355, whose mission is to help veterans and their families of all eras in any way, while at the same time show friendship, honor, respect, brotherhood, and camaraderie, along with the knowledge, and most importantly, that they are not alone and have a place and other veterans to turn to. Frank is also involved with, and this is just a few of them, other organizations to include Veterans of Modern Warfare, Operation Gratitude, American Legion Post 507, Habitat for Heroes, For Veterans, For the Troops, Wounded Warriors, Soldiers Angels, Iraq Afghanistan Veterans of America, Task Force Omega, POW MIAs, Antelope Valley Point Man Ministries, and Patriot Guard Riders. And again, quite a few other nonprofit organizations centered around the same thing, and that's helping all veterans, getting to the homeless veterans, getting them help, housing, and health care, and also helping and supporting returning veterans, that's today's kids, helping them and their families. As a Vietnam veteran, Frank feels it is an honor and his duty to reach out to all veterans and help in any way that he can, so they don't continue to have the feelings of being alone and abandoned. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank LaRosa.
I really appreciate being the recipient of these awards, but these awards do not belong to me. They belong to all Vietnam veterans, living and deceased, that have put their lives on the line for this country and flag and our freedoms and liberties. And it's definitely an honor to represent them, because a lot of them have passed on and they felt forgotten when they did. And our organization, Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 355, the Lost Patrol, are here to make sure that it does not happen again to any veteran from any era in the past or in the future. Thank you very much.
I've been out there when Frank's group has come and helped refurbish a number of homes under the Habitat for Heroes project, and it's always incredible to see the effort they put in and how much giving they do. So one more time for Frank and everyone. But I'd like to call up Chris Wright of Desert Storm. Chris? Chris joined the Army at the age of 19 and fought in Desert Storm as a mortar gunner with the 3rd Infantry Division, and was awarded the Army Commendation Medal for his role in assisting the United Nations coalition in defeating the Iraqi forces. After the war, Chris was discharged and returned to California, where he continued his service in the Army Reserves in military intelligence until a military downsizing that took effect in the early 1990s and his unit was deactivated. Chris and his wife Dawn have been married for 18 years and have 2 children, son Timothy and daughter Audrey. Chris is an active member of the American Legion Post 507 in Newhall and also an American Legion Rider, Chapter 507. He is also active with the community with volunteering with Habitat for Heroes, the Santa Clarita Shelter, and daily volunteer work on a helpline. Let's give a hand to Chris.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Roy House. I am the commander of the VFW Post 6885 in Canyon Country. It is my honor to introduce Joseph Linzick, IT1 SWAW. Joe graduated from Canyon High School in 1996, was accepted into the California State University Northridge as a music major. He played lead trumpet in a studio band and the Marching Matadors and in the symphony. He enlisted in the United States Navy February 12, 1999. After boot camp as an RM in RMA school, he was assigned to the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln. The Abraham Lincoln participated in Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. While on board the USS Lincoln, Joe dedicated his free time to studying computer systems, his warfare specialties, his warfare qualifications, and he played the trumpet in the ship's band called the Man Overboard. Kind of fitting for a carrier. Eventually, he did earn his warfare qualifications, surface warfare and aviation warfare, and specialized in combat systems, 3rd Division. After leaving the USS Lincoln, he provided support to Air Base NAS Sigonella, Sicily. Prior to leaving for his next command from Sicily, he spearheaded a division which maintained the workload and the needed administration at NAS Sigonella. He was later assigned to the aircraft squadron, Air Tevron? Air Tevron?
The Test and Evaluation Squadron.
Air Tevron Test and Evaluation Squadron in Channel 8. There he volunteered his time to become the squadron's personnel security assistant. His duties included, in cooperation with NAWS Channel 8 Police Department, conduct background investigations and checks and renewals on security clearances, security indoctrinations and training, incoming and outgoing visitor requests, and upholding the on-site security restrictions. He was honorably discharged from the U.S. Navy in November of 2007 and is currently in the VA Work Study Program and utilizing his post 9/11 GI Bill. He's going to earn his bachelor's degree in psychology from Brandman University. What Joe finds most rewarding for his 2 years, or 2 tours of duty, 2 years, over his 8.5 years in the Naval Service, was the fact that he had the opportunity to provide logistics availability and support that was necessary for the troops at the tip of the spear to get the job done. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Lindsay.
We have one honoree that unfortunately was unable to be with us who passed away this last week. We had planned to honor Harry Bell for World War II Air Corps, and doing that will be his good friend Jim Lantini. Jim?
Harry Bell was born July 2nd, 1923. Last week, he celebrated his 89th birthday at his home, surrounded by friends and family. Harry drove his '65 red Mustang convertible in the July 4th parade as part of the Elks Flotilla. He passed away July 5th, doing what he loved most, flying. 2 weeks prior, Harry had shared some of his wartime stories with me and what he did in the war. At age 21, Harry began his flying career at the beginning of World War II. He enlisted in the Army Air Corps and went to aircraft gunnery school after basic training in Florida. Then he was attached to a bomber group in Lincoln, Nebraska. His group was later sent to Arizona for training in B-24 Liberators. Then he was off to Bangor, Maine with his crew after picking up their new B-24 in Lincoln, Nebraska, which was built by Henry Ford. This is important to mention because Harry's second love after flying was cars. And he specifically pointed this out. At that time, Henry Ford was building one B-24 per hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and produced more B-24s than any other aircraft in World War II. I didn't know that. Harry's bomber group left Maine for Italy with the 15th Air Force, 757 Bomber Squadron. After 12 missions, the 757 started bombing Ploiești, Romania, the main oil supply for the German war machine. And Harry shared moments of that. And any of you that are students of World War II, this was the most heavily protected anti-aircraft area anywhere, and the Germans were very good at it. He survived those missions. Harry flew 50 combat missions as a gunner and engineer. Most crews are rotated back to the States after 25 missions. When he returned to the U.S. in December 1945, he spent 30 days leave with his parents in Michigan, married his wife Barbara, then went to California for a mental physical. I don't know what that was then, but that's what Harry wrote. After the war ended, Harry was asked what he wanted to do. He went to school, and he was assigned to the Army Air Corps of Engineers. After serving in the Army Corps of Engineers, including a tour during the Korean War, Harry left the service. Returning to civilian life after the war, Harry came to California, where he worked with LA County engineers for 15 years, where he met his future business partner and formed Andel Engineering with Ed Bolden, his close friend. Before he retired, Harry became a realtor with Harry Bell Realtors and Century 21. Harry Bell epitomizes the generation of heroes that are the backbone of America. When necessary, they volunteered and fought our wars to protect our freedom and way of life. Harry was well known for his involvement in business and community affairs in Santa Clarita, and he was an integral part of the foundation that built this community. As a citizen, a businessman, and a charitable contributor involved in all aspects of our community. He was a member of the Shriners, the Masons, Santa Clarita Valley Rotary, and a charter member of Elks Lodge 2379. His number was number 39, and there's over 650 members in our lodge. He was honored by our community and named Man of the Year last year in 2011. Those of us who had the privilege of knowing Harry are blessed to have shared his passion for giving to his community and his country. He was a patriot and a symbol of the Rotary motto, service above self. We thank you, Harry, for serving and sharing with us. God bless you.
There is no greater sacrifice than the sacrifice of one's life. We've had 11 heroes of our town pass away since the War on Terror began in 1991. And right now, I'd like to read their names. Army Specialist Stephen Cawley, Air Force Sergeant John Condon, Army Sergeant Ian Gielig, Army Sergeant Dennis Lee Sullen, Jr., Sergeant Dean Todd, Specialist Rudy Acosta, Air Force PFC Robbie Wilson, Lance Corporal Richard Ricky Slocum, Army PFC Jose Ricky Ricardo Flores Mejeda, Marine Private First Class Jake Suter, and Army PFC Cole William Larson. Let's give him a hand. The one thing that I get when I speak to parents of fallen soldiers is they never want their children forgotten, just like I would never want my son or daughter forgotten. We're very fortunate to have 3 families and 3 parents of our fallen soldiers. I'd like to welcome Bob Slocum, Dante Acosta, and Tim and Delia Gielig. Please stand. At this time, I'd like to welcome Tim and Delia Gielig. Please come up. But Tim and Delia, I want to read a little bit about your son to everybody so they know who he is. Ian Gielig, 25, of Stevenson Ranch, California, was a 2002 graduate of William S. Hart High School, enlisted in the Army of October 2006, and took his basic training at Fort Steele, Oklahoma. After attending basic airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia, Ian reported to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Assigned to the 126th Transportation Company, Ian was stationed in Kuwait beginning in July 2007 for a 15-month period. In August of 2009, he was deployed to Afghanistan and assigned to the 782nd Brigade Support Battalion, 4th Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division, Fort Bragg. Ian was asked to stay a little bit longer because at the time we needed more troops, and his time to come back had already expired. And unfortunately, Ian was killed shortly thereafter on March 1st in the Kandahar province of Afghanistan when enemy forces attacked his vehicle with an improvised explosive device. That day, he happened to take the position of gunner that's most exposed, and he normally wasn't there. Ian's awards and decorations include the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the Overseas Service Ribbon, and the Basic Parachute Badge. He is survived by his 2 sisters and his parents, Tim and Delia Gielig. Can we have a nice round of applause for the sacrifice he gave?
Good afternoon to everybody. It is truly an honor to have this scholarship named after my son, Ian Timothy Gielig. This morning, I was saying what would I say. They might ask me to speak, and I asked my son to guide me. And here is what I came up with. My son, Ian, had a calling to serve the country. He knew the risk, yet he defied all odds to join. He knew in his heart that I didn't want him to join the service because he's my only son. But he chose, as a mother, I would have rather let him finish his school. He made a promise that in 3.5 years, after his contract, he'll go back to school. A month before he died, he called me about his plans. He said, "I can't wait to go back to school, Mom. I will be a nurse just like you and Dad." He would have been a great and caring nurse. My son will never have the chance to fulfill their dreams. But through this scholarship, I would see our chosen veterans fulfill that dream for him. To Mr. Timothy McKinley, you're truly an inspiration that you chose to pursue your dream. God bless you. To our beloved Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce, thank you for allowing this scholarship to happen. We owe a great gratitude to all our veterans who have given up the most enjoyable things in life. comfort of their homes, families, and loved ones to protect our sovereign country. And most of all, I would like to thank the parents, the Gold Star parents, who have given an ultimate sacrifice when we lost our children in the battle zone. To Fred, Arnold, thank you so much for your unconditional love and support to us Gold Star families. To the Santa Clarita community families and friends, thank you for your continued support. God bless all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it was a great desire of my son to pursue a college career as soon as he came back. But eventually, he never made it. So I'm very thankful, and the family is very thankful for this scholarship, because whoever got this award for scholarship, I will always see my son in him. So once again, I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce and the men behind it, Fred Arnold, and everybody who was behind it for this event. And also, I was deeply touched by, this is the second year that we have this, and this year is quite different. We have the awarding of all the veterans way back in World War II, and as far as the recent one. And I was deeply touched because my dad also served in the World War II in the USAF, that is the United States Armed Forces in the Far East, and he died after the war. And I could remember the saying that an old soldier doesn't die, he just fades away. And which is indeed true, and I don't remember who said the saying, but it is indeed true, because as we observe today, people just 90, 89, 90 years old continue living. And even if they will die, they will still live in our memories. That's how the veterans is. So once again, thank you for this wonderful event that we have made in this valley, and God bless you.
Welcome Bob up to give you the award for the scholarship.
What an honor, ladies and gentlemen. I remember those words. I was a little boy, General MacArthur. Some of you in the room remember. Old soldiers never die, they just fade away, is his closing statements to the U.S. Congress. I think the year was 1953, but I might be in error on that. Timothy McGinley, the Ian Gillig Memorial Scholarship recipient for this year. I was given by Fred Arnold a write-up that was submitted by Timothy for his scholarship. This will be his application. I'm going to read it as he wrote it. I think it is very impactful, very profound. I know it sounds overused to say, I always wanted to be a cop. But for me, it's pretty factual. I have always felt that my role in life was to serve and protect others. This mindset, probably instilled in me first by my mom, who was a humanitarian aid worker. It has stayed with me throughout my years as a volunteer worker in South Africa, as United States Marine, and is what brought me to the career I am now in, working as a police officer with the Los Angeles Police Department. And if I may interject, that gives me a particular honor. As many of you know, ladies and gentlemen, I had the privilege of serving on the LAPD myself for 25 years. All that I have experienced so far has led me to realize that while it's important to have a career goal and achieve it, it is also vital to have the education to get me where I want to go within that career and where I can make the most difference. My childhood was spent traveling with her, meaning his mother, all over the world, from Australia to South America to South Africa. After finishing school, I volunteered for several years in South Africa, where I worked with underprivileged children affected by HIV and AIDS. I helped to bring supplies to villages and orphanages in need, and helped to facilitate holiday camps for kids. I enjoyed the work as I was involved in South Africa. However, ever since the terrorist attacks on September 11, I felt a strong desire to serve in the United States military, to do my part in the fight against terror. So I decided to move back to the United States, where I joined the United States Marine Corps as an infantryman. I learned so much during my time in the Marines. I learned discipline, perseverance, and to not give up when the going gets tough. I learned how to be a leader, to take charge in situations I was unfamiliar with. One very difficult experience I had while serving in the Marines occurred during a deployment in Iraq. We were on a convoy through a region in Al-Anbar province when we came under attack from insurgents, and my good friend, Drew Weaver, was killed in action, taken an AK-47 round through both lungs. Losing Drew was one of the most difficult experiences that I have been through. But it made me analyze my own life and focus on what really matters. As I thought about how short life is, I realized that I wanted to make every moment count and equip myself in the best way possible to be able to make a difference in my local community, to help make American neighborhoods safer places. I hadn't had much chance to take college classes while I was in the Marines because our training schedules and deployments were so persistent. With my service in the Marines coming to a close, I started to take college classes and then joined the Los Angeles Police Department. I am currently going to school at College of the Canyons, where I am working to complete my general education requirements to transfer to a four-year university and earn my Bachelor of Science in Administration of Justice. Having my degree and a good education will not only help me to be able to promote within the police department, but will also give me the tools to be the most effective officer that I can be. Is it any wonder the Los Angeles Police Department's got to be proud of this young man? Loyalty, humanity, duty, service, commitment, and leadership are all part of my everyday life and are reflective of the career path that I have chosen. I gave a commitment to my country to serve with honor and loyalty in the Marine Corps, and as well as currently in law enforcement. I see my duty as a police officer to be a leader in my community, to follow a strong code of ethics in all I do, and to serve the people with respect, fairness, and dignity. In closing, I want to say thank you so much for your consideration in offering me this scholarship. I appreciate it and want you to know that I would work hard to make studies and future achievements worthy of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Timothy McGinley. I recognize you're all wondering, unfortunately, this young man had to work. Thank you for the reminder, Fred. And that is why he is not here with us today, but certainly duly recognized and appreciated for his service.
I'm going to close it with one last quote. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It's the soldier, not the politicians, that ensures our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag. I want to say thank you, everybody, for coming to our event today. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Thank you.